Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this Economic Development Committee meeting Thursday, January 16th, 2025 to order at 6 o'clock, 6:01 actually. Alrighty, so before we get into the agenda tonight, I'd just like to introduce everybody to our wonderful new member at large, David Turcott's now joining us, and we're really excited to have him. So welcome and thank you. Awesome, and then just moving into the adoption of agenda, is there any additions or a conversation about the agenda? Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
I'll motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Awesome, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes? Was there any conversation in regards to those? Okay, perfect. Councilor Dean?
I'll move that the committee adopts the minutes of the EDC from November 14th, 2024.
Awesome. Alrighty, any further discussion? Then we'll call a question, all in favor? And that is passed. Okay, moving right along, we do not have any delegations for this evening, and getting into strategic thinking and the economic development calendar of events. I will turn it over to Bert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we have quite a year ahead of us, 349 days left, but it's certainly been off to a heck of a start. So what we have with the RFD is we have a new, for us for this year, a dedicated economic development events calendar. And so what we wanted to do was to populate that calendar with all of the information that we currently have for all of our events going right up until the end of December. So we're hoping that that will help to assist our committee members and all of us with planning out our time and resources and all of that. And we've already identified a couple of points in the calendar where we've got some pretty tight constraints. One of the ones to note is around the May event when we have the trade fair. So we have the Whitecourt Trade Fair, and then we also have both Jennifer and I away in the days kind of immediately following that. Given if everything develops the way that we expect that it will throughout the year. There were also a couple of other events where we know that we've got some significant crossovers and some things like that. So we'll let everybody sort of take a look through that. The most important thing I think coming out of the calendar is, as we've done in previous years, but instead of doing it in a lump at the beginning of the year, we've done it as the year has progressed, as events have drawn closer. But we normally do have, of course, all of our members at large and members from council attend the EDA annual conference, which is in, I want to say, April. And then we have the Growing the North conference, which is actually our first conference of the year, coming up in Grande Prairie. And that's rapidly approaching at the end of February. And what we should do is to make sure that we've got those events on people's calendars and that we have appointed the people that we want to attend for both of those events. We do have room in the budget this year for all of our members at large and for, I believe it was up to 4 members from council and administration to attend the EDA conference. We also have, as we've done in previous years, we have the SiteLink conferences. This year there's one in Grande Prairie and there is one, or sorry, not Grande Prairie, one in Red Deer and one in Fort McMurray. And at the last conference we had 2 administrative people go, and that seemed to work very well, but we need to get some thoughts and comments from the committee as to would they like to see committee members attend, elected officials attend, how do we want to work that through. And we also have a number of our councillors that have already dedicated themselves to events. So Councillor Kulkin has indicated that he will be attending the Growing the North, both as a rep from Woodlands County and on behalf of the Growth RETA. And then Councillor Kulkin and Councillor Prestige will also be attending the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. And Councillor Wilhelm has indicated he'll also be attending the Global Energy Show. So we know we already have some people dedicated to those events. The other main part of things we need to do under this RFD is to have the discussion about when would we like to hold our Economic Development Committee meetings. And we can kind of set as many of those dates up as possible today as well. And with all the information at your fingertips, hopefully we can do that quickly and easily and not schedule ourselves conflicts which we then later have to address.
Go ahead, Councilor Dean.
Thanks to the chair, to Bert. So to that end, can we not just put that regular third Thursday as our meeting date, and all we really have to do is establish the time, and then if the chair decides that there's no reason for a meeting because the agenda is really light, or there's people away at conferences, then it can be just canceled. But rather than try to pick all these days, I would prefer just to stay with that day and then let you decide whether or not we don't need a meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think that in going through, so, because we had put the ECDev committee meeting in there, and it did, because it is in the calendar now on the third Thursday, and so it does interfere with the Growing the North Conference on February 20th.
Who's all going to?
So we would have a conflict on that date with that third Thursday, and then I think there was one more that we had identified.
I believe it may have been June or something as well, but I noticed it also, it seemed that the Thursday might be an issue. I had just wanted to bring up and ask, first, I agree as well with Councillor Dean that we should pick a day and keep it. But I did want to bring it to the group, is Thursday the best day? So, meaning that that's what we've gone with in the past, but depending on the makeup of who's here, like for example, is Monday a better day than, I know Wednesdays are generally taken up with council meetings. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I think stay away from Wednesdays just because that'll conflict with council at some point.
Of course.
Any of the other nights of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday is fine, as long as it stays consistent and I can plan around it.
Go ahead.
Tuesday night's fire practice, so that would be a hard one for me, but
Yep, that's perfect. That's why we want to have this kind of discussion. Is there any particular night for you guys that's better or worse than others?
Bert?
No, Thursday nights I think work okay for Jen and I. The other administrative concern that we have is that with both of our schedules, both for Jen and myself, we have quite a few hours of work that often fall outside of regular work time. And it isn't saying that, we need to necessarily have every one of our meetings in the afternoon or during the regular workday, but if we can accommodate that, it certainly makes things much easier, especially right now with the way that Jennifer's schedule is, because she has an awful lot of fire events and different things. And so the way that it works is that, when you're away, then you're allowed to bank some of that time and then take time from the regular workday. And so what we're running into with Jen is that if she gets plugged up on evening and weekend events, then we don't have her in the office for, possibly 3 or 4 days that next week, right? So it is certainly more efficient from the admin perspective to have at least some of our meetings during the regular workday, if we can swing that, but we do understand with the committee members that we want to make sure we've got everybody available, and we know that it's when you have 7 or 8 people that are all incredibly busy, finding the right time is always an issue for discussion. So that's all. There's just a number of things to keep in mind, but that's why we wanted to have the discussion tonight.
Is Councillor Williams' schedule generally 1 week on, 1 week off?
Yep.
Okay. So then my question would be, I guess first to the group, is what are your daytime availabilities? Is daytime an option ever, or is it something that maybe all of them maybe 9 a.m. works for somebody? Or is it something that we should alternate between mornings and evenings or afternoons and evenings? How flexible? I know, David, I'm sure you have a lot of...
yeah, it's a little harder for me. Like obviously
Yes.
the school day's done at 3:15, but
Mhm.
it just depends on the day and the week.
Exactly.
Sometimes there's meetings and things like that for work. But,
So are you able to, say if there was a 1 o'clock meeting, would you be able to attend that?
Yeah, most likely.
Most likely, okay. Or 10 o'clock or whatever.
So the other thing that we haven't really discussed around this table, but I know in previous organizations I've been in, especially around Chamber of Commerce meetings, we've done things like that dreaded 7 a.m. start, or you do that breakfast meeting, or you do that lunch meeting from 11 to 1. I can see the pain on Shelley's face. Just
I'm retired. I don't get up that early.
So, you know, those are things that we can consider as well. And, you know, with this committee and with the folks we have around this table, there's a lot of camaraderie and all of that. And I mean, if everybody's willing, I mean, we can be as creative as everybody wants to be, right? So I'll just throw it out there, whatever you guys would like to do.
To be fair, I could
Based on some of the
do it.
conversations I expect from, there's at least a number in the group that won't want to meet before 9 a.m.
I could do it.
No, not interested.
Actually, I had you in my mind. I was like, so I was gonna save you the trouble. But definitely, I mean, maybe it's something, a 9 or a 10 a.m. start, or, you know.
If an
a
11 to 1
whatever.
works, we could even try that, right? I mean, it just depends what the committee would like to try. But I mean, certainly, I think the key thing to do would be, let's look at those dates. If the Thursday is the date that works, I think maybe what we do is we say, okay, we've got roughly 10 meetings a year. Are there 2 or 3 there that might work for us to have during the day or at a different time? And if you want to single them out now, we certainly can.
Are Mondays an option for the group?
It's fun for me.
Yeah, it just depends on the week.
Exactly, which
Yeah.
makes sense.
But why does changing the day matter?
Well, I'm just curious, because when we ran into some issues with Thursdays already, and in looking at the calendar, when I went through the calendar, there was already with the Thursdays and some of the overlap. I was just curious if maybe Monday might be an easier day, like Monday afternoon or Monday evening. Because a lot of people, even if they're away for the weekend, then they're usually back on Monday for work on Tuesday. So that's where I was thinking maybe Monday might be a little bit easier to accommodate than Thursday.
And Madam Chair, in looking at that, that's what I needed to do. This is why I wanted to have the revised March dates there. So the Advanced Economic Development Alumni Session is scheduled from the 17th to the 21st of March, and that would conflict with me being in the US at the time of our regular meeting date, which would be March 20th.
Okay.
I guess the only other thing I can see potentially with Mondays, well, I don't see any conflicts so far. You know, often long weekends, the Mondays are
You're right,
the long weekend day or whatever.
yeah.
But I'm not sure, because the holidays are not here, I can't see if that conflicts anywhere.
Then, you know, let's stick with the Thursdays if that's the case. If it's a moot point, then you're right on that, and we can just kind of go with the Thursdays and adjust if or as necessary. But now, timing-wise, is there an appetite for 4 o'clock meetings as opposed to, say, 6 o'clock meetings? Would that help bridge the difference a little bit, maybe? Oh, go ahead.
I don't care what time it is or which day it is.
Okay.
So my vote is nil. Whatever works.
Okay.
Does that help administration?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we populated the calendar, what we did was we put everything in for that third Thursday with a 1 p.m. start. But we can certainly go through and we can look at changing those. The one anomaly right now would be that March 20th meeting. Well, on that one, for sure, my suggestion would be let's move that to March 13th if that doesn't conflict with anybody else. And in regards to time to start, the 4 p.m. start might not be a bad compromise. That might be something that would work, because it lets us do the prep and at least get some of the meeting done. And if we stay to that 2-hour meeting time frame and we've got everybody done by 6, that does make things a little bit easier for sure.
Yeah.
4 o'clock would mean no missed meetings for me. Because I would never have a meeting scheduled for
Okay.
work, right?
Well,
At 4 o'clock.
and that's kind of what I was wondering, is we want to, you know, try to accommodate the group as best we can. So, and that's why I was thinking with Councillor Williams, hopefully we can catch him at least half the time on his flex schedule if that's the case.
So Thursday at 4? That's what we're
Thursday
saying?
at 4? Let's
Okay.
go
Does that
with
work
that.
for Jeremy?
We'll go back in and we'll repopulate that calendar then with the Thursday, 4 PM. And then how does everyone feel with that one change if we move that March 20th meeting to March 13th?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then even if
She's
it's, you're looking like there's not
okay.
really much on the agenda, just cancel that.
It's okay if I tell the pottery lady.
Is that the same day as
She's
the, community services too? Just saying.
Oh, and that's a good question, and
But it doesn't start till 5:30,
But you
so
go
if it's
ahead. I
only,
think they
I don't know how long the meeting is.
Right, that's.
Oh, I know some of the ladies.
So that's three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right on that 13th day,
But I
that
just-
might,
the ones that I
Do you
know.
wanna go with 1
She
o'clock on
kind
that
of
day?
would
Would that
talk
make it
with
better?
pottery.
Why don't we just cancel that meeting?
Yeah, why don't we have a look at the agenda and see whether it's necessary?
Okay,
And if it is necessary, then we'll find a time. And it might not be that day, but
okay,
we'll
then
figure it
that
out.
works.
Yeah, the
And we
13th.
can also, converse online via email if there's something in particular that we're,
Sure.
okay?
Okay.
All right, so moving on,
and I have a feeling that there was one other one. Just give me 1 second. Oh, yeah, so September. I don't have the final confirmed date yet, but just to let everyone be aware. So in September, on the 18th, if we follow the same schedule we did last year, that would likely be the date of the White Court Career Expo. So we would have the ECDEV meeting opposite the Career Expo that day. I think that was the other conflict.
okay, and I do wanna make sure that we keep an eye on that one then, because last year, we had the economic development meeting the evening of the Career Expo. And I felt really bad actually that we had gone ahead and had it that day because it's way too much to ask Bert and Jen to do. It's too much on administration because they're far too busy that day to have to deal with the meeting.
So we'll look at potentially moving that one.
Yes. Yeah, this
The other
is,
question I had was the summer meetings. Like, do we need meetings in July and August?
generally, we have not been meeting in July and August up to this point.
Well, we did put July and August meetings on. Sorry about
Because
that.
normally the goal in the past has
Well,
been 10 meetings a year.
That's what happens when you press that monthly button, when you shouldn't have pressed the monthly button. Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, we don't need the July and August. And then, more to come as we get everything confirmed on that September 18th date, because we don't have the day finalized for the Career Expo just yet. But if we pick the same day that we did last year, that's the date that it would fall. And then, I feel like there was one other small item that I had, but now I just forgot.
Can we also cancel that December 18th meeting? That's so close to Christmas. I mean, we've canceled it the last 3 years ago, I think.
Agreed. I think at the moment then, just a question. With it being this far out, could we look at putting it as December 11th? Tentatively, and then cancel it if we don't have the agenda items in advance?
Well, my preference would be, I know December is a busy month. All
It
of us
is.
are gonna have extra things in our calendar.
Yeah,
And it's only-
Canceled it the last 3
And
years.
it's only 3 weeks after the November one, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's-
fair enough. Okay, and that's, yeah.
And who knows who's gonna be here in December,
Oh,
right? Post-election. We might be voted off at that
we'll
point.
have the November, oh,
But these guys aren't.
But some people will have expired as well, right?
you're right, I might not be here either, so. Good point.
We'll be here.
So the other point with that then too is, knowing what we know now and anticipating what we're anticipating, we'll hopefully be able to move a little bit earlier in the year on both feedback for the budget. I know that's something that we're discussing around the management table right now, is how to move the budgeting process a little bit further forward, maybe even right into August, September. So we'll be able to do some looks and some input at the economic development budget and the budget overall at that point. So maybe that idea of canceling that December meeting at this point, knowing that, maybe there would be either a strategic planning event or a post-council event or a budget-focused meeting that we might want to focus in on maybe sometime in late August, early September, something like that. There's maybe that possibility. So that's probably not a bad thing to do. And the one thing that I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of was going back just to that trade fair weekend. So please mark it in your calendars now. The chamber has confirmed, and we have our booths confirmed. The May 10th and 11th dates are the dates for the trade fair. So if you are at all available to come and to assist, we would love to have you there, as you know.
I can't.
Okay.
That's Pottery weekend. We have our sale that weekend.
Well, no problem. So then what we can do is then we can mark you down for the October event for the trunk or treat. And we'll see you there.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Maybe.
Maybe.
So through the chair to Bert, I guess, just want to make you aware, and perhaps you are, that trade fair weekend, our council last night accepted in principle, I don't know, kind of like an opportunity to use the trade fair to tell Woodland story. You know, these are the infrastructure projects that are ongoing and et cetera. So to that end, that booth is likely to be populated by more council members now and more staff members. So I think coverage will be easier this year than it has been in the past.
And we do have 2 booths actually booked this year with the Rita right next to us. So we'll have a chance to kind of do a really nice economic development county presence together. And yeah, I'm excited that came out of last night's meeting. I know Jeff and I had an opportunity to talk a bit about that, and I think that would be wonderful for us to be able to get out there and provide more of a Woodlands County narrative at that event.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Are you gonna talk about this? I was gonna talk about something different.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on this quickly that thanks, Councillor Dean, that's something exactly I wanted to bring up, is in regards to the trade fair, I would like to see it as that between, it's not just Bert and Jennifer that have to be there the entire time and carry the weight of responsibility of all that. So that being said, I'm really glad to hear that part about council. Also, based on the conversation that you had, I also think we should strike the November meeting because the October meeting will be an organizational meeting. So that's when, because no, the October meeting will be pre-election, will it not?
The November meeting will be the org
Okay,
meeting.
keep the November meeting then. My
Yeah.
apologies. The November will be the organizational meeting. Okay.
That's
Oh,
Jeremy.
do we have any further discussion on the meetings?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
kind of meetings, but it is just events too. And I wanted to just suggest to Bert and maybe the committee as well. I wonder if at some of this stuff, Bert, like the Santa Claus parade, the trunk and treat, all that kind of stuff, if we should invite the members of the Community Services Board as well to participate.
Good idea.
I mean, the more the merrier, right? More hands make a better product or whatever that saying is.
Might work.
And I know some of them have asked before. They said, "Oh, how come we don't ever get invited to that kind of thing?" So,
We would love to have more people on board with all of the events we do. Absolutely.
yeah, I think you'd probably get some buy-in from them as well because I think I see some synergy there between community services, the people on community services, and also with ECDEB at those social events.
I
I'd
can
love to
already
work
hear
with them. I
Jen
think that's
calculating
great.
how
You
many
said-
elf costumes she's gonna need to order for this year. Great.
And we can get the
That's
chair
wonderful.
to push it hard.
And
Yeah.
that's what I was, so we'll
that's
lean on
the-
Mr. Turcott for that. Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
I feel that would be the right slot for that committee. But you said Kulkin is going to Grow the North, is that right?
Yes, so he's indicated that he will be going.
Is anybody else from ECDEV going?
Well, and so thank you, Kristen, for bringing us back to that. So that is a great question, and I will hand that over to Madam Chair.
Definitely it's something we wanted to bring up at this table. So after having attended Growing the North last year, it's something that I found, my takeaway then was how incredibly important it was, and that I really think we need a larger, stronger presence at that event. And it was something I was curious who is going. You said Councillor Kulkin is going, maybe one of the other councillors?
Yeah, I know Councillor Dean has often attended. I don't
Not
know what
this
your
year.
intention is this year, so.
Okay. And I was curious on the board who may be interested. So, and that one takes place February
18th to the 20th.
18th to 20th.
So was that one you had interest in attending yourself, Krista?
I am saying I'm, like, obviously we all love going to Kananaskis, it's beautiful. And it's a really, really impactful event, I think. But I've heard such good reviews from you and from Rhonda with the town. I think if I don't go, somebody needs to go because it's so good. So I'd probably be interested in one way, shape, or form.
And I know also I had mentioned as well, I'm also interested. So, and that was something I was, curious about that Bert and I had spoke about a little bit, that whether we'd have room, to kind of look at one or two events.
I'm quite certain that if we have two that want to attend for Growing the North, we'll be able to accommodate that within the budget this year. Whether it's through pending announcements from NRED, SCOP, because it can filter into some of those monies once we get them as well as what we already have. So we've got a fair bit of flexibility, right? And not counting our chickens before they're hatched, because we may not get either of those programs. But I think that it's pretty fair at this point that if the committee would like to send two people to Growing the North, we'll find the resources to make it happen.
Particularly this year with the Greenview Industrial Gateway announcement, and knowing that there's going to be some buzz happening about that, and to kind of learn a little bit more about what's going on with that project, then more now than ever, it would be nice to have multiple people so we can attend different sessions. So, okay, excellent. Then now for Kananaskis, still the plan was for that. Then you said you had room for all four members at large?
Yes, we do have room for all four members at large, and if I remember correctly, we have 8 spots ready, because we usually get a couple members from council and usually myself and maybe one other from administration. So I guess that is the question to our members at large at the moment is, can everybody make it to Kananaskis? Does that fit? Would you like to attend? How do you feel?
So this is one, I'm curious, Mr. Turcotte, if anybody has spoke to you about for what this event is.
No.
Okay, so essentially, actually, we'll let our EDA expert explain.
Once a year,
at 'em
economic
be.
development officials come together in Kananaskis. We have our annual Economic Developers of Alberta Conference. It's 3 days of incredible fun and fellowship and intense learning. And we would love to have you come and be there if it fits into your schedule.
So as someone who was brand new when I first went, I learned a lot about just economic development in general and economic development in Alberta and kind of what, as someone who had no background, I'm an engineer, is my background in industry, right? So I had no clue. And the conference was extremely valuable. There's different streams going on at the same time, so you can kind of pick and choose what interests you. And so if there's 8 people there, you all potentially have a whole different takeaway from the conference. So there's lots of different options to pick from. It's not everybody just going to the same thing and sitting around at the same table.
And
It's
the-
really
the-
good networking and really, there's so many different, I was amazed at how many different things were happening at the same time.
It's like the
Yeah.
fire hose of learning of economic.
Yeah, it's actually
development.
quite
Yeah.
intense,
Yeah.
the amount of stuff you could get out of it. It was actually a very good conference.
There's always an economic update of some kind. They have individual sector presentations and some different things. And we're waiting to hear, but we have, with Sean Goodeve, applied to EDA to find out if they will let us do a presentation on what our SCOP findings are for our current SCOP program. Because there's a panel that Sean's been invited to be on to talk about some of the different things that consultants do, and that's something that he would like to report on. So we'll wait and see how all that goes, but you might even see some of our information actually presented at one of the venues. So the conference dates for EDA are from Tuesday, April the 8th through until Friday, April the 11th. And what happens is usually there is a mixer on the Tuesday night or some pre-conference training sessions on the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday and Thursday are full days. Friday is the Friday morning, and then everybody's usually on the road home by about noon, 1 o'clock on Friday.
So you
And we
typically
would have,
drive down on the Tuesday then?
but generally that's it. Depending on what you want to do. Some folks might go a day early, and if you want to make a family vacation out of it and stay for the weekend, we of course wouldn't cover that part of it, but you're already there, so it's whatever works, you can extend your hotel stay.
Councillor Dean?
So a question, last time there was an issue with hotel availability because they were doing.
We are reserved and at the resort, yes, thank
Okay.
you.
That might sound kind of petty, but it's not, because the hotel we were at was a half an hour drive away or 20 minutes. And it just made, one of the nice things about that conference, as Shelley and Kristen mentioned, is there's an opportunity to take in a whole bunch. And sometimes you just want to escape to your room and just decompress, or maybe, check some emails or something. And because we were a half an hour drive away, it made that difficult. And so if you left because you had to go and do something, it was hard to get back. Yeah, so I don't mean to sound petty, but there's some real practical.
It's not petty at all. Like at the conference when I went the first year, you start your breakfast sessions at 7 a.m., and it was 10 o'clock at night before you're done.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, and you don't realize, but I mean, that is a ton of information if you attend all that and you realize, oh wow, like maybe I need to go take that half an hour at supper time and just go sit in my room and kind of get away from people. So.
Or at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever.
Totally. So, no, I 100% agree.
So the other thing that I wanted to, just a question to Bert, going through the calendar of events, I notice there are 4 different US-based conferences that we have sponsorship. I know you said the Atlanta one, we're not actually attending, but we have opportunity through NRED for sponsorship. The Kentucky, Maryland, Niagara, and Orlando, is that the same thing, or are you actually going there?
No, I would actually be at those. So the Niagara Conference is the EDAC conference, that's the National Economic Developers of Canada Conference. And we did attend that one this year, but that was in Edmonton. So with EDAC, that one does float around through Canada. The November conference is the Economics, which is the one that I went to in November this year that was in Salt Lake City. And it's actually in Florida coming up in November of this year. The Atlanta conference, yes, that is a sponsorship of a SiteLink conference that is in Atlanta. But because Lynette Tremblay is there, she was our keynote speaker when we hosted SiteLink, I was able to work the deal with Paige that we're just a sponsor at that one. We won't actually be at that one physically, although I might be able to have an opportunity to do a virtual introduction of Lynette. We're still kind of working that through. And then the other two would be, if we get NRED, the USA Select or Select USA, that is the big site selection conference in the US. That's the granddaddy of them all.
That's the Kentucky one?
No, that one is in Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah. The AEDL Alumni Conference, so that's the Advanced Economic Development Leadership, which was the course that I took 2 years ago to get my MEDP. Their goal is to do a 2-year upgrade. So that's actually funded through my training budget through the county.
Okay. And so you brought NRED up, and I know later on in the work plan we're going to discuss it, but if you don't mind, I'll just ask my question now. One of the things that council had asked for when council approved that NRED application, because of course the county it's matching, right? So we're looking at over a 3-year period. David, you might not be aware of this. So the NRED Northern Regional Economic Development Grant that Bert applied for was a matching grant. So it's 3 years of $100,000 that will come from the provincial government that needs to be matched by Woodlands County. So we asked during the presentation, the representative from NRED was attended virtually, and we asked if we wanted to scale the project back, did we have that opportunity? And he said yes, because we'd asked Bert, and Bert wasn't exactly sure when we talked at the committee level. But we do have the opportunity to to tinker with it, we can leave it the way it is, or we can move things around based on what Bert would bring to us. So the ask from council when we approved it, A was, do we have that flexibility? And B was, can we see like a detailed use of funds, if you will? So where are you at with that?
So we did a budget, so it wasn't, he's actually not from NRED, he's our grant writer that we've hired from the Alberta Council that did both our NRED and our SCOP application. And so with the NRED, what we did was we went through and we did a budget, but when you do the application, it's not you group a bunch of different things. So I can show you the budget that we submitted and I can give you the breakdown, but we don't know if they're going to approve all of it. What was interesting was as we put our costs in and we priced everything out, we've got that document. But then when you put it into the grant itself, they don't want to know, this is what we're spending on advertising. They just have a section on marketing. So it's like, even if we're bringing, paying to bring site selectors in to do a site tour, well, that all fits into marketing. And so what he did was he ended up completely changing the budget that we had put together so that we had an application that we knew would fit and that seemed to make sense.
Okay.
So yes, and then the problem we've had is since he submitted our NRED application, which was 2 weeks before Christmas, and then the SCOP, which was just before Christmas, he's been away ill. And so I haven't had an opportunity to have a really good conversation and to see the full final details of our applications.
Okay.
I've got drafts, but I don't have actually the final applications
So
themselves
for the
yet.
committee, the reason I'm bringing it up is we need to be accountable to council. The committee recommended to council to proceed with the application. Council said yes, but council wants to see some vetting of the project with budget numbers. So when that's available, it'll come to the committee, we can have a look at it, and then we'll so essentially send it to council for their approval again. Because we approved it, but we approved it with the option to change it. If we decided that we didn't think that use of funds. And so Dave, we effectively over doubled this committee's budget. We added 300, is that right? Is that-
100,000 per year for 3 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe not
Is-
over double, but we significantly increased this committee, and we need to be accountable to that. So we need to see some results.
And I think based on that, that was conversation we kind of had around the time. There wasn't a lot of time to put the application in, so they had to get the application in with something on it as well that we could go forward with. But I think when we're looking at some of the, whatever the spend is going to be, and the way that I see it as being able to take that argument to council, is I really want to see it kind of outcome focused. And I realize there's not always like an outcome from economic development, but for example, like if it's going to a conference in Maryland, then it's more like, I'd like to maybe kind of see a targeted, who is our target to speak to? Whether that be a sector, an industry, or a person. And, can we get, like, say if we have 3 people from data companies that we're targeting, that we can come back and say we've interacted with these and we've made these connections and we worked on building these relationships, then maybe that's something we can sell to council. But I think we really need to be cognizant of tying an outcome to the activity. So,
For example, one of the possible spends was publications, was advertising and publications, and this committee really wasn't in favor of that. It was like, we think it's 2025 and hard copy publications, but we don't walk in the world that Bert does either, right? And so he's saying that at the high level meetings, when an investor comes in to a government agency, often there's hard copy booklets available for investment opportunities around the world. And if we're in that publication, that could catch their eye. So on the surface, I think the committee was kind of, hard copy, but, Bert's the expert. He's the one that's in the field. So what I'm expecting is that when that application is approved,
Yeah.
that then you'll have the time to go through and say, okay, this is what we're doing this year, this is what we're doing next year, and that's what we're doing in year 3. And we're just not there yet.
Well, and the interesting thing with the application as well, and this is what made it kind of, I don't want to use the word difficult, but it's a fluid kind of an application as well. Because what you commit to at the beginning when you get your funding, you have a chance to evolve that as you go through, right? Like, we may find that, we get partway through the year and we say, wow, what we really need is an industrial park study. And so maybe most of the year 2 and year 3 spending then moves into that, right? But as long as it aligns with what is under the grant, then that works, right? So we do have some leeway to work with the grant administrator once we have those funds put forward, right? And I mean, an ad is never going to sell us, but it's the profile, and it's the recognizing and being out there competitively with other municipalities and all of that. But a 25% tariff completely changes the picture.
And
So-
we have to understand there's one thing to satisfy the demands of the grant, so you
Yeah.
can change, but expectation too, right? Committee has an expectation. So between compiling an application that fits parameters of the grant application and something that this committee actually wants to walk with. So
Well, and I guess maybe the missing piece, and what I should have said first, is anything that we would put in the application is something that we know that would already align with what we've gotten for direction from council and from the committee.
And I think, and it's something we kind of got ahead of ourselves a little bit outside of the calendar of events. But, sorry, Kristen, I cut you off.
No, you were going
I
first.
did want to add, and just one more thing in there, I guess, my question to Councillor Dean would be, is there a dollar amount spend that you would like to see come before the committee then for vetting?
No.
Or some kind of a.
we were approved for
guardrail?
$100,000.
Okay.
So if the plan is good use of $100,000, then I would think the committee would say go for it.
Okay, and, no, I meant, for example, like, if Bert comes and says, oh, I want, to use $7,000 of this for a publication, or $25,000 of this.
I don't know
for a
those
pub-
numbers, Patricia.
Okay.
I gotta have a look at this thing.
Yep, that's fair. So then, essentially, then what we take from that is that we want to look at it at the committee level before there's any significant spend. Is that a fair assumption then?
Well, if you're asking me,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coming back to council, that's what I mean. So, okay, and I think that's something we can put forward for a discussion for those specific events, so. Okay, then just to kind of, Kristen? go
I
ahead.
was putting forth, Jeremy's really good at this. Accepting the economic development calendar of events with scrapping, do I have to say the amendments?
As discussed.
As discussed, thank you.
Are you okay with that, Bert?
That sounded perfect to me.
Okay, perfect. All right, any further discussion on this motion? I'll call the question, all in favor? Awesome, thank you for that. All right, moving on, new business to Athabasca Watershed. Take it away, Bert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item under new business, I guess the first question is anyone aware of the Athabasca watershed?
Like, what do you mean by aware of it?
Like, do
I know
you-
we have one.
Like as an organization that it exists and the role and all of that.
Yeah.
So as the RFD says, it's a registered charity and not-for-profit formed in 2009. And in the past, Woodlands County has been involved and we have participated directly in the committee. In recent years, we have not. And what we noticed as we were kind of going through and doing some research over the last couple months, currently, if their website is correct, there is an open municipal chair or municipal space around their board table. and they want a municipality from the upper basin, which is our basin, if I'm remembering correctly. And so there is this opportunity. So what we wanted to do was to ask the committee to give their endorsement to bring forward to council the recommendation that Woodlands County pursues the open seat on the Athabasca Watershed Board of Directors.
Go ahead.
And would that be a counselor or someone from admin,
I
like
believe it
yourself?
has to be an elected official that is appointed to that, but I believe that when they have their meetings, they can bring an advisor. So that's the information that I've got. I'm not 100% certain, but yeah, I think it would have to be an elected official.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Is there interest from our elected officials?
We have not asked that question yet, so that's a great question.
Well, so I read this RFP probably the same time everybody else did, and I see value in that. There's all kinds of crossover networking that can take place. So yeah, if I'd be happy to if we got that seat.
I think it's actually an important place to have. When you look at things like the SMR and potentially other industries that come to town, that's one of the things they're looking at is the water resource. And that's just one aspect of what the Watershed Committee is looking after is the industry use, but you also have to balance recreational use and everything else. So knowing that we're doing this big economic push to bring development to the county, we also have to protect the river. And I think having a seat at that committee would be very valuable.
I agree. So if I think there's consensus around here, so I move that the EDC recommends to Woodland County Council that Woodlands County pursues the open seat on the Athabasca Watershed Board of Directors.
Absolutely. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much.
And if you need a buddy, I'd volunteer.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Alrighty, so
I know we
moving-
have at least two people in infrastructure that are like, oh, please, I hope they do this.
So moving right along, so to our work plan updates, and actually what we've been doing in the past, correct me if I'm wrong here on this one, is you have the work plan updates included. We've just been reading them over, discussing, rather than having to go through them all as them.
Yes,
That's it.
correct. And the only thing that I would like to point out directly, just two quick things. So number one is that second bullet under the NRED and SCOP applications. As I mentioned, our consultant's been away, and these felt I had to quote his exact words. Our submissions have been completed and they are detailed and solid. So that is in his professional opinion. And then the last part is just to mention that, as we've mentioned around this table before, it would be great to make sure we were doing economic development updates to council. And so that's the last item. Monthly now, since we've had Joan as our community services director, we've been providing updates from all of the departments that report to Joan, which she then provides to council monthly. So that's just that summary of what's already been presented to council.
Through the chair, I just wanted to comment on the Innovation Canada or innovatingcanada.ca banner. I thought it was really nice, succinct little article there, and the fact that it came first right before O'Leary's thing. People have to go past it to get to O'Leary's thing, so I thought it was really well placed, and it was a really nice article to see when I read it.
Agreed.
Thank you very much for that, Counselor. And I appreciate that. And with that, I'll give you a little bit more detail as to sort of how this came about. So, of course, media folks have their contact lists and they know who to call and all of that. So this is something that it came from a company called Media Planet, and they're a company that consistently provides publications like this to go into the National Post, and then there's the online component. And if I've done my job correctly, I think I have the landing pages there as well. So we do have the ongoing electronic presence. But of course, with something like this, as an advertorial, it does come with a cost. And so going back a little bit to sort of what we were just speaking about, this is the first time we've done an ad in a national paper in my history with us being with Woodlands County. and I was really happy to be able to do it. I also was completely thrilled with the ad placement. And it came through having a bit of a conversation with our sales guy, but I'll just say it worked to our advantage. So the initial presentation was $14,000 a page. And so I said, I'm not doing a full page. So then 2 weeks later, the follow-up was, well, we've lowered our prices. And to which I said, well, I'm not surprised. So then I said, so what are your prices? Well, $12,000 a page. I said, okay. I said, for 12, I said, what can I do for half a page? And he says, well, I don't know. He says, the only half page we have is the cover. I said, I'll take it. I said, no, I said, see if you can get me the cover for 6. I said, that's perfect. And there we go. So, so negotiating is a big part of how these things happen. But that being said, Media Planet was fabulous to work with. They did a great job for us. It went really, really well. It was very exciting to be able to get elected officials and everybody on there. And as we were going through and doing the graphics process, and we showed them not just the county logo, but the Center of Alberta graphic and all of that, their excitement just builds, right? Because the first conversation we had was, well, he says, we'd like to put Woodlands County in. And I said, well, why? And I said, what have we done that's innovative? And he says, well, you know, he said, that's what we want you to tell us. And I said, well, I have a few things I can mention to you, but I said, you know, can you give me some other ideas as to what other communities are doing? And he says, oh, well, I just finished talking with Kyle from Greenview. And I said, oh, they're our next door neighbors. I said, well, that's great. And I said, yeah, they're being pretty innovative. I said, well, let me tell you what we're doing. And he's like, oh my God, you guys would be perfect. And so, yeah, it was a very friendly kind of a conversation. And that's where, you know, when we take a look at advertising on that national stage or being at that bigger level, it is a bigger spend. But if we do it strategically and if we can negotiate a little bit, you know, we can hopefully make things work in our favor. So thank you. I'm really glad to hear those positive comments, and it was fun to put it together. And so far, we've had nothing but really good feedback. So,
Go ahead, Councillor.
Through the chair to Bert, did you ask him what the motivation, like why he reached out to Woodlands County?
yeah, so what it was they were looking at, they really wanted to showcase another 1 or 2 communities in Alberta. So they kind of had us on an Alberta demographic. There wasn't anything really specific that twigged with him initially. But he said, you know, if we get people that say yes, he said, then we need to make sure that they've got enough content for the editorial and that it's going to fit. So I said, well, you know, and we went through a few different ideas and had a conversation with him, and he forwarded everything through to his editor, and his editor said, yeah, this absolutely meets our standards. This sounds good, right?
So like had he canvassed 50 municipalities, or was
I
it?
never did get that exact number from him. It's just, he just told me that they were trying to focus on some of the other municipalities in Alberta, so.
So, like, I guess where I'm going is, why did he contact us? Did he read an article, or did he?
It was just, where did he say he had pulled? I think it was from EDAC, I think was where he said he pulled the contact info, right? But, I mean, it was, the call came in, and, well, it was several emails, and then when I did finally respond, that was when the conversation sort of started, and, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, go ahead, Krista.
I don't know if this is the right spot, but it is a work plan update. I gave a, not presentation, but a couple-minute talk to the White Court Council, just for an update on H Park.
Oh, awesome.
That was in December, maybe? I was wondering, does the county council want an update from H Park, or would it be to this council or board?
I think that's something that the council would be interested in.
Okay, because you guys gave us money, so.
Right.
I think it'd be good to tell you what we're doing with it. So maybe that could be a take back.
So did you, who facilitated that for you from the town?
The town asked me to come do it, so Rhonda did a presentation, so I could get her to email me or somebody else the presentation. if we send it out, you guys have an opportunity to read it, look at it. I can just go through it briefly
Sure.
and give a 5-minute
So
presentation.
could I make a motion that we direct administration to work with Kristen to
Do-
do a presentation to council on each project?
Do you think it's better to have to bring them as a delegation or do it as an information? I think as a delegation
A
would be
delegation
wonderful.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was intending.
Yeah, I think if you make the motion to have them, that we would support them coming as a delegation, that'd be great.
So can I make the motion now and ask you to work?
Absolutely.
Okay, so move that the committee directs administration to work with Kristen Belke to do to form a delegation to report to council on H.
PARC.
Yeah.
Partner.
Health
part.
practitioner,
Health
recruitment.
Professionals Attraction and Retention Committee.
That's it. H part.
Awesome. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll call the question, all in favor? Awesome. Okay, I do have a question, Bert, in regard to the media planet as well. I thought it's very professional looking, very well done, and also love the placement. But I'm curious about, so now, is this an insert that was also in the physical paper on that date?
that is my understanding, is that what they did was they did it as an insert in the National Post, as well as there's the electronic landing page.
Okay, do you know, or did they give you the number of, like, what kind of circulation does this have in print and online? And who would it be circulated to online?
I can get all those numbers for you off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay, no, and that's cool. It's just something I think going forward, I know that I'm interested in when it comes to any printed material is, I'm probably gonna always go back to asking, who is the circulation, who is it aimed at, and are they our target market? So, gotcha. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, is there any other discussion on the work plan updates?
You'll have on page 28 a very stretched graphic, and I do apologize. But
Very skinny.
I tell you, it looks good on the website. So again, this came out of when I was at the EDAC conference. Met a lady by the name of Marta Russell. Marta is the ad rep for Site Selection Magazine, which is owned by the Conway Site Selection Agency. But Site Selection Mag has been around for quite a while. Their website is very well known within site selection circles and within the ECDEV industry. And we've sort of given some information on them at previous meetings, but the advertising opportunity that was apparent that because we had a little bit of money left in the budget, it all kind of worked. It was for, I believe it was about $1,200 US. From January 1st to 31st. We have our pop-up ad appearing on their main page. So when you go on to siteselection.com, our little Woodlands County pop-up comes on, and when you click on it, it takes you to the site selection page of our Woodlands County website. So you get our some of our site selection info as well as our investment profile and all of those kinds of things. So that's what we've got running right now, just sort of as a test to see what kind of traffic we get off of it and all of that. But that was, again, it was one of those things where it was under that $5,000 threshold and it was in the budget. So I had time and opportunity, so we did it, and we'll report results once we have them. But yeah, it was our first foray into kind of doing anything with them as well. So.
Awesome. Alright.
And then-
Sorry.
Go ahead, Bert.
And then the last item is one that we have jointly developed with the BSN group. So under the Whitecourt BSN banner, we have coming up on March 5th from 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We're doing it's a presentation by Michelle Cederberg. And we also have Professional Development and Business Resources Summit. So it's a networking opportunity, the ability to learn more about local resources. We're doing this in conjunction with the town, Community Futures, and the Chamber. And so that advertising is now just started to go out with that March 5th date set. And we were initially looking at an earlier date, but then we realized it conflicted with Growing the North. So we moved it over to March 5th.
Awesome. Excellent. Now, is that one that you can share on our Facebook page as well?
100%, yes.
Great. Okay, Kristen, you have-
I move to accept, what's it called? The work plan updates as presented.
any further discussion? Awesome, then I'll call the question, all in favor? All right, moving right along, we have nothing under blue sky discussion this week. So then we are just coming into our information items, and I would, oh, sorry, go
Can I
ahead.
take a bio break, or do I just take it up and?
If we do this one, then we can take a break just before
Sure.
we go into the closed, if that's okay.
Absolutely, so, okay, go ahead, Counselor Nate.
So once again, as I understand the format of the information items is that if people had questions, they'd bring them up if they didn't. So
Absolutely.
if there are no questions, I'd move that the Woodlands EDC accept the information items presented as information.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question, all in favor?
And I have a question. Is this side of the room winning the motion?
Jeremy, Ellen, Kirsten, yes.
Darn it.
You're in trouble.
So then, right now, then what we'd be looking at is, coming out of this section, we'd be moving into our closed meeting. And what we've done in the past, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Bert, is, there would be no motions within the meeting, and we would just come out of that meeting and make a motion to adjourn. So,
Usually the format is we would come out of the closed session with a motion to accept those closed session items, or to accept the discussion, and then we would move to the motion to adjourn and to set the next meeting date, yes.
okay, perfect. Go ahead, Councilor Wall.
Knowing that,
Motion we go into closed session under
FOIP section 24.
Oh. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
I'm gonna vote no, just to.
All right. Thank you, everybody in YouTube land, and we'll be moving
Got it.
into our
I
closed
think our
session.
councilors win the motion board.
They have
We
more
anticipate
practice.
better than we do.
I'm gonna make 12 of them.